Hey guys! Today we're making a miniature doll or figurine inspired by Disney's Moana, so I really hope you'll enjoy. Let's get started! For her skin color I mixed some of my basic doll clay as well as a couple of shades of brown, some black, red and white. I then added a small ball of clay to the end of a knitting needle, pre-baked that, added some more clay and started sculpting the head. And as always, the eyes are pre-baked pieces of white clay. Now the problem with Moana is, because the premiere is, at least for the US, tomorrow I think, there aren't really a lot of pictures of her around on the internet, and the ones you can find are either really poor quality or just from the trailer. So I was unable to find the reference pictures I wanted. I couldn't even find one of her in profile, and so I did have to do a lot of guessing. I'm not going to be making her poseable, instead I'm going to be making her more like a figurine, but if you do want to make a poseable version, feel free to check out my other character doll tutorials. I pre-baked before adding the ears, and I pre-baked again before I started working on the body. Because I'm not going to be making her poseable, I'm sculpting the body as well on the knitting needle and a needle tool. Usually I would still recommend making it on an armature just to add some extra strength, but because her body is so small and compact, it's not really necessary. Unless of course you're making her in a larger scale. You don't necessarily have to add the butt crack, I did it just for the fun of it. I pre-baked the body before I added the upper arms. I then pre-baked again before adding the forearms and the hands. And I also pre-baked the hands before adding those, just to avoid ruining any detail. When adding the hands, I first just stuck them onto the forearm. I then added a tiny bit of liquid clay, pre-baked, and then added some clay to hide the seams. Next, I made the legs, added those to the body, pre-baked, and then added the feet. You can then bake one last time, and then after baking I just sanded it a bit with some fine sandpaper. This is gonna leave the surface a bit rough, but once you're done you can add some matte glaze and you won't see it. For the hair I use brown viscose. I got this off eBay and I do have a video of the fur and hair I use if you want more details. I then just started gluing this in place, and once the glue had set I trimmed it a bit and then used watered down glue as well as some dark brown acrylic paint to style it. If you want to give her some curls, especially in the back, you can use the technique I showed in one of my repaint videos. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do this, so I skipped that step. Lastly, I painted her using acrylic paint and some pink pastel, and I then finished off with a layer of matte glaze. To make the shells for her necklace, I just made choppy teardrop shape from white clay and used a needle tool to make a line in the center. I used fabric to make her underpant thingies and painted on the pattern using acrylic paint. Finally, I made the flower for her hair using polymer clay. I then baked it, painted it using acrylic paint and glued it in place. Really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next tutorial.